Hello and welcome to another episode of Pastime Mysteries. Today's episode takes place in 1961, Boston, where a mother vanished from thin air, never to be seen again. In this episode, I will be discussing the life of Joan Risch, as well as the mysterious circumstances regarding her disappearance. My condolences go out to her family, and what a horrible thing they had to go through. Now, let's get into the case. Joan Risch, born Joan Carolyn Bard, was born in Brooklyn, New York, in May 1930 to Harold and Josephine Bard. Unfortunately, her parents passed away in a fire in February 1939 after the family relocated to Mountain Lakes, New Jersey, when she was just 8 years old. Even though the local fire chief declared the fire accidental and an investigation didn't lead to anything, it was later described as suspicious. At the time, Joan was in Brooklyn visiting family. Following that, she moved in with her aunt and uncle, who adopted Joan. She applied for a social security number as Joan Natress, using their last name as her own. It was subsequently revealed that Joan disclosed to a friend that she had an unfortunate past regarding sexual assault when she was a little girl. But other than that, Joan went on to graduate high school and go on to college. She began her publishing career in 1952 after earning a degree in English literature from Wilson College in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. She began her career as a secretary, progressed to oversee the secretarial pool, and eventually worked her way up to editorial assistant at Thomas Y. Crowell Company and Harcourt Brace and World. In 1956, she left her job to raise a family with Martin Risch, an executive at one of the companies that Joan worked at after they married. The couple moved to Ridgefield, Connecticut, and then had a baby the first year they were married named Lillian, and then a son named David followed in 1959. They relocated to Lincoln, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston, in April 1961, and settled in the area with ease. While Martin pursued a career with a paper company in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, Joan got involved in the League of Women Voters. And as the kids got older, Joan mentioned her dream of becoming a teacher. That leads us to her disappearance. In the early hours of October 24th, 1961, Martin got up and drove to Logan Airport in time to catch an 8 a.m. flight to New York City. He had earlier scheduled the trip for business purposes, intending to spend the night in Manhattan. Joan woke the kids up and fed them breakfast soon after he left. After taking her son across the street to Barbara Barker's, she drove her blue 1951 Chevrolet with Lillian because they had an appointment with a Bedford dentist, whom a college friend named Sabra Morton had recommended. After the appointment, Joan took Lillian on a shopping excursion at a nearby department store, and milk and mail were delivered to the Risch's old Bedford Road home while they were away. When asked later, neither the milkman nor the postman had mentioned anything strange happening at the house, so it seemed like a regular day. At around 11:15 in the morning, Joan and the kids arrived home after picking up David from the Barker residence. A few moments later, Martin's suits were picked up from the house by a dry cleaner's delivery driver. In doing so, he went inside the house and remembered nothing unusual about Joan or the residence. After his visit, Joan changed into a blue house dress and white sneakers instead of the more formal attire she had worn to the dentist's appointment and her shopping. After making lunch for her kids, Joan sent David to his room for his daily afternoon nap, which typically lasted until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Barbara Barker then arrived at 1 p.m. with her son Douglas to play with Lillian. They watched Joan come and go while they were there, trimming some plants and returning the shears she had used to the garage. Joan then emerged around 2 p.m. and brought all the kids back to the Barkers and told hers that she would be back. Afterward, Lillian reported to the police that she had not seen anyone else in the vicinity. At 2:15 p.m., Joan was seen by the Barkers moving swiftly up her driveway with something red in her arms as she carried it from her car to the garage. Joan was dressed in what Barbara Barker believed to be a trench coat. She thought at the time that Joan was pursuing one of her kids, even though they were playing on the swings. This turned out to be Joan's final verified sighting. The neighbor's daughter, who lived next door, Virginia Keene, got off the school bus an hour later. As she got closer to her house, she remembered seeing a strange car, possibly a General Motors model that was dirty and had 2 colors on it, one of which was blue. 5 minutes later, a neighbor reported that they stopped to allow a car to back out of either the Keenes or the Risch's driveway as they were traveling up Old Bedford Road, and according to the Keenes, there was no car in their driveway at the time. At 3:40 p.m., Barbara Barker brought Lillian back to her house to take her own kids shopping. She left, thinking Joan was still inside the house from when she saw her last. When she returned at 4:15 p.m., Lillian came back to the Barkers' house, telling Barbara, quote, "Mommy is gone, and the kitchen is covered with red paint." When Barbara went over to discover what was going on, Douglas was crying in his crib because his diaper was full. She then called the police at 4:33 p.m., sensing something was wrong. Within 5 minutes, Lincoln Police Sergeant Mike McHugh was at the house. He spoke with Barker for a short while before entering the Risch home. He discovered bloody smears on the walls, a table that had been turned over, and the wall-mounted phone that had been ripped loose and thrown into the wastebasket, which had been moved from its customary location under the sink and left in the center of the floor. McHugh looked for Risch's body after thinking that this could have been a suicide. He realized he would need backup searching the area when he was unable to locate it. He gave the dispatching desk officer a call and told him to get in touch with Leo Algeo, the police chief. He needed everyone involved. The Lincoln police placed calls to nearby hospitals, requesting to be informed if a woman who fit Risch's description arrived or had been admitted already. After contacting Martin's employer to inquire about his whereabouts, Barker discovered that he was in New York for work, and the Massachusetts State Police had contacted him there to let them know about the family emergency. Rearranging his schedule, he took the next flight back to Boston. Police discovered more hints inside the house. Not yet brought in were the 4 letters that were delivered that day to the mailbox at the bottom of the driveway. The phone book in the kitchen had been opened to the page where emergency numbers were supposed to be noted, but none had. Martin could not explain where empty beer bottles found in the wastebasket might have come from, but he did explain that the empty liquor bottle he and his wife had finished the previous evening was one they had left in there. Joan seemed to have taken a simpler cloth coat. She had left behind the trench coat she had worn to the dentist that morning. Her wallet was in the house as well. It seems very strange that she would leave for a long period without her wallet or valuable things. Following Barker's last sighting of Joan, several other neighbors came forward with possible sightings, which the police investigated. That afternoon at 2:45 p.m., a woman was observed strolling along the north side of Massachusetts Route 2A, west of its intersection with Old Bedford Road, heading toward Concord. The woman was dressed similarly to what Risch had been seen wearing, and she had something tied around her chin over her head. She looked disorganized, hunched over as though she were cold and wandering. 2 more sightings of this woman were spotted by 4:30 p.m. Could this have been Joan? Also, the car that was seen backing out of Joan's driveway was spotted 2 times at 2:45 p.m. and 4:15 p.m., which is also very strange. I know you're probably thinking, what happened to all the blood evidence or, quote, red paint from inside? Unfortunately, investigators were unable to draw any conclusions about what might have happened. There were thick smears on the floor and walls of the kitchen, and some were even on the phone. 3 blood-stained fingerprints remained unidentified. They could not be compared to Joan's due to her absence. There was a roll of paper towels on the ground. One had probably been used to clean up some blood from a hand. A coverall and a pair of underpants belonging to David were lying on the floor. They were both bloodied too, maybe to wipe away the blood. It also looked as though the coverall had been compressed into the ground for a while, possibly by a heavy object, like a body. Although the bloodstains in the kitchen may have come from a struggle, police later stated that they appeared more consistent with someone who had been injured and was stumbling around trying to support themselves. Besides that, the kitchen wasn't the only place where there was blood evidence found. There was an almost 2-inch drop on the stairway's first step. 8 more of a similar size were discovered in the master bedroom, 1 by a window in the children's bedroom, and 2 more at the top of the stairs. Another trail of blood led out of the kitchen into the driveway. It ended at Joan's car and was all over the outside of Joan's car, including the right rear fender, on the left side of the hood near the windshield, and on her truck. There were confirmed alibis from Martin Risch, the mailman, and the milkman that they were elsewhere at the time of Joan's disappearance. Police also looked into a man named Robert Foster of East Walpole because he had raised suspicions from the neighborhood. The Risch's neighborhood was included in the 1959 designation of Minuteman National Historical Park by Congress, which recognized the neighborhood's historical significance as the path British troops had taken as they marched out of Boston to the battles of Lexington and Concord in 1775, which, if you didn't know, is regarded as the start of the Revolutionary War. Anyways, Foster, a National Park Service purchasing agent, had been going door to door to talk about the project. A week after the disappearance, he was interviewed by a state police detective who said that some of the women Foster had spoken to thought he had, quote, overstayed his welcome. Data indicated that on September 25th, 1 month before Joan's disappearance, Foster paid a visit to the Risch residence. Foster told the detective that he and his supervisor went out to lunch at around 1 p.m. on the day she vanished. He remembered that he had returned to the Lincoln area by 3 p.m. to meet with a property appraiser. Fast forward to 1962, the Boston Record American newspaper ran a comprehensive package of articles about the case. The town of Lincoln, the state police, and others offered rewards for information that would close the case. Martin kept raising his kids and residing in the same home. His wife was never formally pronounced deceased. Martin relocated to a different nearby home when the National Park Service purchased the properties of the Risches and others in 1975 to develop the area for the park. All theories of Joan's fate have remained, and the case maintains its open status. It is reported that Joan's disappearance was orchestrated as a means of escaping an unfulfilling life has been reinforced by Joan's history of library books and her challenging past. However, Sabra Morton, the college friend who had suggested that Risch see the dentist that morning, pointed out that wasn't true and that Joan was happy enough being a suburban housewife. Thank you all for watching this week's video. If I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what you think happened to Joan and anything else you'd like me to cover. As always, like and subscribe for more pastime mysteries.